For millions of people, the day begins with the same sound. A sharp buzz, a chime, a digital tone. You reach for the alarm clock, you silence it, and the day officially begins. The alarm clock is one of the most ordinary objects in modern life. It lives on bedside tables, inside smartphones, and beside nearly every bed in the industrialized world. Its purpose seems simple: wake up on time. But the idea of waking up at a precise, scheduled moment is actually a relatively new invention. For most of human history, people did not wake to alarms. They woke to sunlight, to animals, to the rhythms of agriculture and daylight. Work followed nature. That changed during the Industrial Revolution. Factories did not run on sunlight. They ran on schedules. And suddenly, time itself had to be controlled. Workers had to arrive at the same moment. Machines had to start together. Production depended on synchronized labor. A single late worker could slow an entire system. For the first time in history, punctuality became essential. And suddenly, waking up at the right moment was no longer a personal choice. It was a requirement. The first alarm clocks, engineering wake-up time. The idea of mechanical alarms actually existed long before factories. In ancient Greece, inventors like Ctesippus designed water clocks that could trigger bells or whistles at certain times. But these devices were rare, complicated, and mostly used for experiments or elite households. They were not everyday tools. For centuries afterward, people still relied on natural signals, sunlight, church bells, or servants to wake them. Then industrialization arrived. By the 18th and early 19th centuries, clockmakers began experimenting with mechanical alarms that could ring at specific hours. These devices were crude compared to modern versions, but they introduced a new idea. A machine could command when you wake up. One early design came from Levi Hutchins in 1787. His clock was built specifically to wake him at 4 a.m. for work. But it had a limitation. It could only ring at that one time. You couldn't change it. Later inventors improved the mechanism, allowing users to set their own wake-up hour. By the mid-1800s, alarm clocks became commercially available household objects. And just as factories demanded punctual workers, a machine had arrived to enforce it. By the 19th century, factories had transformed work. Unlike farms or small workshops, factories depended on synchronization. Hundreds of workers needed to arrive together, start machines together, and maintain steady production throughout the day. Time became measurable. More importantly, it became enforceable. Factory owners began tracking arrival times, shifts, and output with increasing precision. Being late was no longer a minor inconvenience. It disrupted the entire production system. Workers could lose pay for arriving minutes late. In some factories, the doors were locked once the shift began. This new discipline changed daily life. Instead of waking naturally, workers had to wake early enough to prepare, travel, and arrive before the factory bell rang. Missing that moment could mean lost wages or punishment. The alarm clock fit perfectly into this new structure. It allowed individuals to align themselves with the rigid schedule of industrial labor. In a sense, the clock moved inside the home. The factory no longer needed to physically wake its workers. The alarm clock carried that command into the bedroom. A small mechanical device now enforced the rhythm of industrial life, not through force, but through sound. By the late 19th century, alarm clocks were no longer experimental devices. They were products. Industrial manufacturing made clocks cheaper and easier to produce. Companies began building affordable mechanical alarm clocks that ordinary workers could buy. One of the most influential manufacturers was the Seth Thomas Clock Company in the United States, which helped mass-produce reliable alarm clocks during the 1800s. As cities grew and factory work expanded, the demand for precise waking tools increased. Trains ran on strict timetables. Offices required punctual employees. Schools began operating on fixed schedules. Modern society was becoming synchronized. The alarm clock became the personal tool that connected individuals to that system. By the early 20th century, the device had become a standard household object. Instead of a factory bell waking hundreds of workers at once, millions of small alarm clocks woke individuals in their own homes, each one ringing at a slightly different moment, each one aligning a person's body to a larger schedule. Over time, the sound of the alarm became familiar, normal, expected, a daily signal that it was time to get up and rejoin the system that required you to be there. Today, the alarm clock feels harmless. It's just a sound in the morning, a tone from a phone, a gentle chime, a vibrating notification beside the bed. But the idea behind it carries a deeper history. For most of human existence, time was flexible. Work followed daylight, rest followed darkness. The rhythms of life were shaped by nature. The Industrial Revolution replaced that rhythm with something else: schedules. Minutes became measurable units of productivity. Entire economies began depending on synchronized labor. Factories, trains, offices, and schools all required people to appear at specific moments. The alarm clock made that possible. It turned time into a personal responsibility. Instead of a bell in the town square, the command moved into the bedroom. Wake up. Be on time. Be productive. The sound of the alarm became the first signal of the modern workday. Today, many people no longer use a physical alarm clock. Smartphones have replaced it, but the function remains exactly the same. A device that interrupts sleep to align the body with a schedule. A small machine that quietly enforces the rhythm of modern life. Not loudly, just early in the morning.